In a small town, nestled between rolling hills and a sparkling lake, life was like a gentle breeze. The houses were close enough to whisper secrets, yet far enough to respect boundaries. It was a place where children chased dreams as carefree as the wind, and where evenings were filled with the laughter of families gathered together. But amidst this tranquil setting, there existed a silent storm, a rift that had grown between two friends, Elias and Thomas. They had been more than friends. They were brothers in arms, sharing laughter, secrets, and the responsibility of building their lives from the ground up. But somewhere along the way, a misunderstanding had taken root, growing into a wall of resentment that threatened to isolate them and cast a shadow over their community. Now, years had passed since they last spoke. Their houses, once filled with warmth and cheer, had become haunted by the specter of their broken friendship. The air between them crackled with unspoken words, turning casual encounters into battles and leaving a void that echoed in their hearts. One breezy afternoon, as the sun dripped gold onto the town, casting long shadows across the neighborhood, Elias sat on his porch swing, lost in thought. His gaze was fixed on an old tree at the end of the street, its leaves whispering secrets to the wind. The tree held countless memories for him, especially those shared with Thomas. There were times when they had sat under its sprawling branches, discussing their hopes and dreams, their laughter mingling with the bird's song. Now, however, the tree stood as a silent witness to their fractured friendship. He remembered the day when everything changed. It was a typical summer day when the scent of freshly cut grass mingled with the sweet aroma of honeysuckle. He and Thomas had been engrossed in a project, their sleeves rolled up and their faces flushed with exertion. Suddenly, there had been a heated argument over a decision regarding their shared project. Words were exchanged, harsh and hurtful, and the camaraderie they had always shared seemed to evaporate into thin air. And when the dust settled, they realized with a jolt that the bond that had seemed unbreakable was now severed. Since that fateful day, their houses had become fortresses, each man retreating into his own space, letting the silence scream their unspoken words. Elias missed Thomas, the friend, the confidant he could rely on. Yet pride and hurt had kept him rooted in his pain. He had convinced himself that it was better to be alone than to reconcile with a friend who had hurt him so deeply. Across the street, Thomas stared at the same tree, its leaves dancing in the wind, stirring memories within him. He, too, missed Elias, the easy camaraderie, the shared jokes, the comfort of knowing someone understood him without words. He had wrestled with guilt over the harsh words he had spoken, words that now echoed in the chambers of his heart. As days turned into weeks and months, their silent feud had taken a heavy toll on them. Both men had allowed their grief and anger to fester, believing that the other would make the first move. But pride had become their downfall, blinding them to the pain they inflicted on themselves and those around them. The community they had helped build felt the tremors of their silent discord. Friendly waves became strained smiles. Children who had once played together now whispered behind cupped hands. The very essence of their neighborhood, once a testament to unity and togetherness, was crumbling under the weight of their unspoken conflict. Martha, who lived across from Thomas, watched the two friends from her window. She had seen their friendship flourish, their laughter echoing through the years. Now she saw the sadness in their eyes, and the emptiness that stretched between them like an unbridged chasm. Martha was a pillar of strength in her community, known for her warm smile and unwavering support. She had always believed in the power of forgiveness, having weathered life's storms with her faith as an anchor. One evening, Martha decided to take matters into her own hands. As the sun began its descent, Painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, she walked towards Thomas's house. She knew that Thomas often sat on his porch in the evenings, seeking solace in the quiet. Martha's approach was gentle, born out of her deep understanding of human emotions. She didn't confront Thomas with accusations or rehash the past. Instead, she offered him tea and a listening ear, acknowledging the pain that had been silently eating away at him. She spoke not from a place of judgment, but from the depths of her own experiences, sharing stories of how forgiveness had saved her from bitterness and anger. Her words were like balm on his raw emotions, soothing the wounds that had hardened his heart. Thomas listened, finding solace in her words. For the first time in years, he felt a crack in the wall he had built around his heart. Martha's visit left an imprint on Thomas's soul, planting seeds of forgiveness that began to sprout. In the following weeks, he found himself drawn to acts of kindness, helping his neighbors with projects, offering a listening ear to those in need. Each act was a step away from his isolation, a step towards the warmth of community. Meanwhile, Elias, too, felt a stirring within him, a desire to break free from the prison of his own making. He began attending community gatherings, tentatively at first, then with growing ease. He saw the genuine concern in his neighbors' eyes, felt the embrace of their shared history, and slowly the walls around his heart crumbled, revealing the man he once was, full of warmth and empathy. One day, as Elias and Thomas were helping to organize a neighborhood cleanup day, their hands brushed against each other. It was a simple, innocent touch, yet it sent a jolt through them both. In that brief moment, years of hurt and resentment seemed to vanish, replaced by a longing for what once was. Later that day, as they sat on a park bench watching children play, Elias turned to Thomas, his eyes filled with emotion. He began to speak, his voice thick with years of unspoken words. "Thomas," he started, his voice cracking, "I have carried a lot of pain, a lot of anger. And I know it's not too late to say that none of it was your fault." Tears welled up in Thomas's eyes as he looked at Elias. In that moment, all the whispers of doubt and resentment faded away, replaced by the overwhelming desire to mend their broken bond. "Elias," he replied, his voice hoarse with emotion, "we let our hurt consume us. Let pride drive a wedge between us. But today, sitting here watching these kids play, I realize we don't have to carry that burden anymore." And just like that, under the watchful eyes of the old tree that had witnessed their friendship, they forgave each other. It wasn't a grand gesture, no dramatic pronouncements, just two friends acknowledging their pain and choosing to release it. In the days that followed, their neighborhood transformed. The rift that had grown between them healed, bringing with it a sense of wholeness that had been missing for so long. The laughter of children echoed through the streets, no longer tinged with whispers. The aroma of potlucks filled the air, uniting families under the warm glow of shared meals. Their houses, once symbols of division, became beacons of unity, their windows glowing with the light of reconciliation. The story of their forgiveness spread like wildfire, not because it was extraordinary, but because it was profoundly human. It touched the hearts of those who had hoped for a miracle in their own lives, proving that forgiveness wasn't a sign of weakness, but the strength that held them together. Forgiveness isn't always a grand gesture. Sometimes it's a quiet promise made to oneself to release the burden of anger and resentment. It's choosing to heal, to extend a hand of friendship, to see the good in others despite the hurt they may have caused. In the end, their story reminds us that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the strength that holds us together, the bridge that takes us from despair to hope, from isolation to unity. and from anger to peace.